Okay, back and better than ever on a Thursday. An all-new episode for you here of the Miami Marlins Hot Stove Show with Stephen Strom. I'm Kyle Sielaff. Good to be back. Middle of January, Stephen. What's going on?
How are you, man? Like, what? You had a couple doctor's appointments. You're still fighting something?
Well, listen.
What's going on?
First time I visited an ear, nose, and throat specialist. I had my annual checkup a couple of weeks ago.
Physical.
Healthy as a horse. Never seen
Yep.
anybody that looks this great. Guy tells me, he looks in my ear. You got a little earwax. I say, okay, what do you want me to do? He says, use some ear drops. Use some D-Brox ear drops. No free ads, but they're called D-Brox, over the counter.
How many drops? Just
He
one or
said,
two?
do it twice a day, 3 drops, whatever. So I start doing it. Okay, this stuff like really softened things up in the ears. It really starts to pull things out, which is great. Well, Monday night, I'm sitting on the couch. Yeah, I was just watching TV, and all of a sudden, I just go deaf in my right ear, and I'm like, "That was odd. This is marginally troublesome. This doesn't seem right." And okay, long story short, I end up going to this appointment, which was a catastrophe in and of itself. They do whatever they have to do, and I am, as I just mentioned, I am now back and better than ever. I can hear out of both ears. I'll tell you what, though, a little concerning. About 15 minutes into the procedure, it's not a procedure. They just like suck this crap out of your ear.
Yep.
He takes it out and he goes, "Any better?" And I'm like, "Nope." And he looks at me like, "Huh?" I'm like, and then he looks at me like that. And I'm like, "You don't tell me. Don't look at me like that. What are you about to tell me? I've gone completely deaf?" No, I'm good. Both ears, really good. I've like got big Dumbo elephant ears, so they can hold.
Interesting that you're not like feeling like a new man.
Yeah, I am.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah, now I am. No, but what I'm saying is after 15 minutes of them like working on it, he was like, "You feel any better?" I'm like, "No, it still feels clogged." And he looked at me like,
"Yeah,
you okay? Like, are you actually, did something go wrong?"
Dude,
anyway, they kept working on it.
Sorry, enough ear talk, but like I'm a Q-tip guy too. Like I constantly, we always have earbuds or whatever it may be, and people tell me you just push it back further into your ear, which is
I do use Q-tips, but I've never pushed them in my ear. Like I've always known you can't push it in.
Just around the
right. But he just said, you might have a little extra buildup, but
you're good, which is great.
I'm good. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Look good. Ears look good. You hear me loud and clear?
Huh?
Yeah. There you go. Very good. See, last year I would have been like, "You hear me?" and not gotten the joke. So we're off and running. Okay, we actually have a couple of things we need to cover. Let's start with the arbitration guys that came to agreement, because this is the most awkward thing I think in sports is arbitration in baseball. It's very cutthroat. You're like arguing against your own team with your team, and it's just, I don't know. It's intense. But the Marlins came to agreement with 5 players, if I'm not mistaken, Kyle.
Yes.
And it was Anthony Bender. It was Edward Cabrera. It was Nick Fortes. It was Braxton Garrett. And it was Jesus Sanchez. Is that correct?
That is correct. One of which is out for the entirety of the season, and Braxton Garrett. I think the big point to be made when it comes to this arbitration cycle, if you look around the league, teams will have 10, 12, 13, 15 arbitration eligible players. That's once, and there's certain criteria. You can meet arbitration after 2 years, whatever. But the point being, you got to get your three years in. After your third year, 6 years of team control, years 4, 5, and 6, you have an opportunity to earn more. I think this just really goes to show you how young the Marlins are, man. 5 arbitration eligible players, and even you say those names, Bender, Cabrera, Fortes, Garrett, and Sanchez, those are still really young guys. Obviously they're meeting the criteria, but it's just 5 guys arbitration eligible. That's nothing. A lot of these other teams deal with 10 to 15 different cases, 8 to 15 cases. Half of them end up in court where, as you mentioned, you're bickering back and forth. But yeah, nice to see the Marlins just kind of take care of that. And unfortunate, obviously, that Braxton Garrett he's done for the year.
Yeah, last year I remember there was a couple of hiccups or some bumpiness, which is as expected when you feel like you're worth something and you're going against your own team. I think it was maybe a rise, or it was or it was Jazz or whoever it may be. Before we move on to arbitration or past the subject, the 5 players there, what player, because they all, you can make a case for, need to have, or in order to have a big payday, they got to have big years. Mm-hmm. What player is most interesting in this arbitration case for you?
It's got to be Jesus Sanchez. That's the immediate one that comes to mind, but
yeah,
just because I think there's so much untapped potential. Like if he simply becomes just an everyday player who, may always hit righties better than lefties, but he does prove he can hit lefties, and he is an everyday player and hits 240, 250. He's got 25, 30 home run power. If he does that, dude, and you look at the homers there, a lot of that would play a factor. If he were to hit 20, 25, and really to me 25 to 30 in there, that would be a huge payday after 1 year of arbitration. But I think the same can be said for Edward Cabrera. I mean, if he has a great year, stays healthy, pitches really well. Imagine if he pitched to like a 3.5 ERA and made 28 starts. Talk about a bump in pay. I guess the long story short here, Stephen, I guess you could say this about all those guys, but you asked me for one player. Right. Sanchez intrigues me the most.
Right. Yeah. And I think those are the two, right? Jesus Sanchez, if he can hit lefties, and then Edward Cabrera. And a man that's going to have a big say in that and his growth this year is one of our guests. And this is another deep and distinguished guest list that we have for the program. Daniel Moskos and Matt Mervis, which I know everyone can read on X right now and YouTube, but for our audio audience, I'm pumped to talk to these two individuals. One looking for a change of scenery, and the other coming from the same place in Chicago, has an interesting story, was a top pick, and has turned his life over to coaching. It's two interesting stories, and I'm very excited to share it with everyone.
I agree with you, and I don't want to share too much now, but we were both unaware that he and another member of the organization were fighting for the same job this year.
Yeah.
I could say who it was, but I want people to listen. And he says it very quickly. I was not aware that he and another individual were targeting the same job. The organization gave it to one person, but then said, "Wait, no, you're not going anywhere. But we think you're better suited at the moment coaching," which I think is extremely cool. So yeah, Daniel Moskos, Miami Marlins Major League pitching coach. First interview, Matt Mervis. Fun interview. We didn't chat nearly as much baseball as probably we would have liked, but a really fun interview. We're recording on Wednesday.
What's with these guys doing in their car, man? What's with these guys doing these interviews and Wagaman, and then we got Mervis in the car.
Yeah, hard workers,
busy
getting
guys?
out of the gym. Yeah, they're busy getting out of the gym. I guess we all find. Don't you find a little peace when you sit in your car? No, I do.
I don't.
Like after games and stuff, when I get to my car and just sit there and like that quiet, I think it's very like.
Oh, I know
peaceful.
You love that. I know you
just
love
like
that.
Shut your eyes after like you hear like loud sounds and people, which is awesome. But like that peace and quiet. Yeah,
I hear you. Yeah. Speaking of my car, I'm getting a car wash today. Random, but haven't gotten a car wash in probably 3 years.
Well, you're always welcome to come up here to Miramar. I have a hose. I have a bucket. I don't know if you're into washing your car by hand. That's what I do. It saves you some money. I will always, you know what, Steven?
I like going through the thing, though.
Here's the olive branch that I'm willing to extend you.
Go ahead.
Free of charge. You don't have to pay for water. You don't have to pay any utility. No water. If you want to use my hose, all my belongings, my soap. Yeah. Thanks, I have like a car wash contraption. It like suds the entire car. So whenever you want to wash your car, Steven, you can wash it for free in Miramar. You just got to let me know time and day when you'll be coming by.
What other house cleaning do we need to do here? International free agency is.
Yeah, full disclosure, we're recording on Wednesday. We have a really cool company outing we're going to be attending tomorrow. Don't need to say more than that, but super pumped to do a bunch of team building stuff with the entire company. It's going to be awesome. We're recording on Wednesday. We did our interviews with these guys. They had some time yesterday on Tuesday. I know the show's coming out tomorrow or right now when you're listening to this. on Thursday. So, yes, as of the recording, international free agent signing period open. And again, there's been nothing official from the team. We can pull up what seems to be the big headliner of that class, was Andrew Salas. Sounds like he's going to be getting near $3.7 million in a signing bonus. One of the best players in the class. So that's pretty cool. He's the younger brother of Jose, who's now with the Twins organization.
Okay.
And he's also, I think there's a relation there with Ethan, I believe, who's the big prospect for the
San Diego
Padres, unless I just made that up. I'm sorry if I did.
You may have. You may have. I don't know.
Never let the facts get in the way of a good story. I thought he was. If he's not, I apologize. But Andrew Salas, apparently, Stephen, headlining the class for the Marlins.
Yeah, and again, we can't really say a ton on it because it hasn't happened yet. But it's anytime you get someone, at 16 years old, obviously it's an entire process, but it's really exciting. And the Marlins have, dipped into this space heavily. And, Peter Bendix has talked about not just being good at one level, not just being good in one area, not just being good in one country, and for the Marlins, they want to dominate everywhere, and they're trying to do so, particularly in such a big and important and vital space, which is the international signing period. I mean, it is vital to an organization's success. There's been so many guys that have been international signees that have went on to be pretty damn good players, and this is another area where the Marlins are taking it very serious and landed a good one, hopefully in Salas.
You have to, man. Like these are the Juan Sotos, right? You don't know when you're going to find them, and you don't know how much you're going to sign them for, and they're all 16, 17 years old. Tip of the cap to Fish on First. They've done a great job of kind of laying out this whole international free agency, a huge article, and they've kind of chronicled the individuals kind of getting the most in signing bonus. Andrew Salas headlining the class. Kevin DeFrank, who's a Dominican right-hander, just 16 years old, turned 16 in August. I think he's getting a little over $500,000. And then Anthony Abreu, who it sounds like the Marlins are very high on, a Dominican infielder. Again, all of these guys are very, very young. Adriano Marrero, a Cuban right-hander. It's amazing when you look at Salas, Stephen, $3.7 million, and there's immediate drop-off to DeFrank, who they're very high on, getting $560,000. Then, it goes all the way from millions upon millions of dollars to guys that you'll see in the article. If you take a look, just go to fishonfirst.com. Guys are going to get $30,000 signing bonuses, but you don't know, to your point, what that 16-year-old turns into. And it could be as long as 10 years, man. Like, how many 24, 25, 26-year-olds make their debuts and they go on to have 8 to 10 years of really good service time in the big leagues? But yeah, this is where it all starts. These are the kids you don't, as a fan, really pay much attention to or care about because you want to see them win at the big league level. But in 2 or 3 years, you'll see that name. They're finally out of the Dominican Summer League and they're with Jupiter. And, then you'll see that they're in Beloit. And then 5 years down the road, they're 21, 22 years old. Then they're knocking on the door. And you don't remember January 15th or 16th of 2025. These guys will be, man. They don't remember. These guys will be big leaguers in 2030. but you're right. This is where it starts. And there's been an organizational investment in that academy down there. And putting these young men in a position to succeed. So I don't really have much more on that. It's a great day for the organization. And I know that you don't bear the fruits of this labor for a half decade, 5-6 years, but it's important.
Yeah, but there's substance and there's a history of some really good ones. And, you pray they can, be someone like Jose Ramirez or Salvi Perez, but those guys are international free agents, and you got to start somewhere. And for the Marlins, hopefully this was the start of a really good class. And by the way, I did a voiceover for the Marlins. Have been doing these TikTok.
I like them. I don't have TikTok, but I see them.
Yeah, they're really good. And I had to do one for the Dominican complex, and it is stunning, absolutely stunning. It looks like it's like when you were a kid when you loved baseball. It would be like the comp to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah, it's a little paradise.
It's like a paradise. Absolutely. It's beautiful. So Marlins are up to some really good things, I think, as far as the foundational and the signings. And they're sending them off to a really nice place in the Dominican and to work with some great individuals.
And those academies, they house you, they teach you, you go to school.
It's like college, dude. It's like
you don't just wake up and play baseball. You are getting an education because, something, and I'll talk about this for a minute. A lot of teams do this, excuse me. The reason that they do this is because organizations are aware that you can't just pull a kid at 15 or 16 years old and make baseball their life, because there is a huge number of individuals that you'd never know their name, you never knew their name, but they were at these academies and they ultimately weren't good enough. And they basically, I don't know how else to put this, they get sent back out. You just get released, but they provide them with an education. So you hope that they're at least a little bit grounded when they're no longer, when the baseball is over, but they can leave there with a high school diploma. So that there's a huge component of that with these academies, not just for the Marlins, but every team. There's an educational component to where there's a lot of turnover in those academies. Not every single kid gets out of the Dominican Republic Summer League, the DSL, in these academies and flourishes stateside. A lot of them don't. They end up working. So, yeah, amazing. I think it's really cool. It's an awesome opportunity, and that's pretty much all I have on that. Oh, there was one other thing I wanted to bring up, Stephen, that I saw you load into StreamYard.
Go ahead.
What do you got?
Well, hold on. I put that in for a reason. That's for later, man.
Oh, I'm sorry. I saw it. I wanted to talk about it because I was thinking. Yeah, I just blew Love It or Leave It. We're going to reconvene and find a new Love It or Leave It. But I was super excited about this, so I did want to talk about it. I'm sorry. I blew that for you. I do apologize, but we were talking about building things in like those academies. Can I ruin this for you? Do we want to save it?
It's so awesome you can, but it was good. It was a good pun. It was going to be Love It or Live It, and I was going to,
Oh.
Yeah, it's fine. Whatever.
Can we reconvene? Find a different Love It or Leave It for later, but do an impromptu Love It or Live It right now. Can you just give me your thoughts on this awesome deal that they're going to be building outside the ballpark?
Selfishly, this is outstanding. Brings fans in early. You grab a drink, grab a bite. Heck, I'd love to do my pregame show out there. By the way, interact with fans, but the Marlins have a separator here, in my opinion. It's another reason to come to the ballpark that's already unique, but it really caters to the fans. And the Marlins want to be beyond baseball. This is how you do it, right? This is exactly how you do it. It's open year round. It's creating, I think it was like 200 plus jobs, which is like awesome just in general. But the idea of like, we go to like these different places like Atlanta, and you look at the Battery, right? And these different ballparks, they have these hangout spots, pregame or postgame. The Marlins, I think, hit a home run here, no pun intended, with this, because first of all, it's Miami, man. Who doesn't want to like grab a drink early, or who doesn't want to get a drink after the game? There's a place to hang out instead of sitting in traffic. You can go hang out and hang out with some friends, get a bite to eat. I just think not just the idea of having it pre and post for a game, but to have it 365, I think is just outstanding.
Ginormous. And I believe the group that they partner with, I'll remove this now. I believe the group that they partnered with might have built Texas Live, if I saw it correctly.
NKC.
In the press release. NKC, maybe that's what I saw.
No, Texas NKC. You're right.
Oh, and KC. Okay.
Yeah.
Dude, I echo everything you just said. This stuff is so important, man. Not only to have it 365 days out of the year, obviously 7 days a week, but to be able to get fans there. The first pitch is at 6:40. And we all understand that it's not easy in Miami, like with traffic, but you got to leave early to get to the ballpark. But you know what? I can leave an hour early now because I'm going to go to Miami Live. I'm going to have a burger and a beer. I'm going to bring, not only is it like just adult oriented, it's going to be for kids too. Bring the family out, get them a soda or whatever and play cornhole. And it's indoor. And this is an indoor outdoor facility. They're going to get it moving quickly because I saw that it's anticipated to open
early 2026.
Maybe that ultimately ends up being opening day, man. But like,
yep.
Just as a fan of things, to be able to go there early and just hang out. And by the way, obviously the two things are married, but it doesn't prohibit you from going to basically Lone Depot Park without a ticket and maybe sitting outside during the year. You don't even have to go in and get a ticket. Watch on the big screen. Dude, that's how you create those really cool environments, man. I think this is awesome for the fans. And how many of those people, by the way, in groups of college kids might just fall in love with the place? Like, this is awesome. Like, the price point is good, right? Spend a few bucks, grab some beers, some burgers, and some food. And oh, by the way, wait, the Marlins they're playing today. Well, let's buy tickets. Tickets are affordable. Let's go in. Or in the second inning, what are we doing? Let's go. So this is a must-have. You talk about the Battery in Atlanta, Kansas City, Texas, all of these places, dude. So important. This is going to be so amazing for the organization. And it would also be an awesome opportunity to like go do a pregame show out there and stuff.
Yep. It'll be on the West Plaza. It'll be a place to gather before and after Marlins games for concerts and other community events 365 days a year. Again, scheduled to open 2026.
Yep. Going to be awesome. So cool. And what do you think? You ready to get into Daniel Moskos' interview?
I'm very much ready. I'm very excited to share with the audience these two individuals.
All right, let's do it. Okay, before Daniel Moskos joins us on the Miami Marlins Hot Stove Show, wanted to remind everybody, and hey, the rumors are true. Marlins baseball back at Lone Depot Park in 2025. The can't miss fiestas all season long. Single game tickets are on sale now. Make sure you go to marlins.com/tickets. You see it right there on your screen. A ton of really exciting things coming up at the ballpark this season. Flanagan's Fest is back. Star Wars. The black is also Star Wars, I think, Stephen. You've got the pink jersey supporting all the moms. Oh, that's Barbie, isn't it? That's Barbie.
I think it's Barbie. It's Barbie.
Yeah, I think.
But regardless, the Marlins have figured out a way to continue to surprise me and you with these jerseys. The creativity is off the charts, and there's just something about going to a ball game and getting a theme jersey.
Yep.
I mean, it's quite cool.
This is our version of like a man cave. Big leaguers get to put their jerseys up. We're putting the giveaways up. Huh? You like that? All right, let's get into our interview here. Joining us on the Miami Marlins Hot Stove Show tonight is new Miami Marlins pitching coach, Daniel Moskos. Daniel, thanks so much for joining us, man. We chatted, full disclosure, we chatted with you for a second before we did this. Happy New Year. You say you've only got till January 15th, so we're one day away, but Happy New Year, Daniel. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. You snuck it in just in time. Happy New Year to y'all as well. Really excited to be here and getting to chat with y'all.
All right, well, let's start right there. You're excited to be here. I did not anticipate you would say otherwise, but you have an amazing trajectory to get to where you are now. Stephen and I will dive into all of that, but just real big picture, your trajectory over the course of your career, playing to now coaching. What excites you about this opportunity, and how did this all come to fruition to be the Miami Marlins pitching coach?
Oh, wow. Loaded question there. It's actually pretty interesting. So obviously the Marlins did a bunch of hiring this offseason. I don't think that's a secret to anybody at this point. I was actually included in their director of pitching search the first go round. They wanted to get directors hired before they moved down to like staff, et cetera. And so I was included in that process, went through the week-long deal. And at the end of it, as it shook out, I didn't get the offer. And basically the feedback that I got is basically the industry and the Marlins specifically saw me more as a coach than a director. And that was fine. I kind of knew that going in, and that it was going to be an uphill climb to get to the director position, having only really been a coach in professional baseball. but it was something that's intrigued me, something that I felt like my skill set at least lined up enough. And I wanted to shoot my shot and just see where the cards fell with that one. And so after I didn't get that, they did say that they would be back in touch. I didn't know exactly what that meant. I do now, obviously. But what they ended up finding out through the interview process of, courting me as a director is that, hey, we might have an opportunity or might have an option here as the major league pitching coach down the road once we get the director position hired. And fortunately enough, Bill Hazel was the hire for the director position. I've had a working relationship with him for a number of years, know him quite well. And it just ended up that they circled back to me for the major league pitching coach position.
When did you and Bill work together?
So it's funny. I actually, Bill was kind of my throwing instructor. I went up to train at Driveline in the off season of 2018. And he's the one who took me through my assessment, took me through all of like my player plan, the throwing program and all of that stuff. And so I actually met him as a disciple that was just looking for him to make me a better pitcher. And so I spent 4 months at Driveline training. I threw in the pro day there. And, as I knew I was at the end of my playing career and I was just waiting to see if, I was able to make something happen on the playing front. They ended up approaching me about asking me if I would be interested in working there. And the reason they did that is they saw me interact with all of the players in the training room or in the training facility and saw that, I was pretty good for culture. Guys kind of gravitated towards me. And I had good personality, but they also knew that like all of the things that they were starting to enforce and use and leverage into their player development, like was something that was completely new to me, but something that I obviously like became very enthralled with, really dove into it, started really working as a coach as I was learning myself. I only had one training subject. It was me, but what better way to kind of learn the ins and outs of this new age of technology than to apply it to yourself, who better than really anybody else does. And so I started to geek out for technology, pitch movement, pitch data, biomechanics, workload monitoring, research studies, like all of these things that I just never really had exposure to really started to intrigue me. I dove right in. And so once they asked me, I talked to my wife. I was like, look, I have a job to go play in Mexico again. It's not something I really want to do. I had a 2-year-old daughter at that point. And so getting closer to home made some sense. And the thought of getting to eat dinner every night with my family, which is something that I know sounds crazy, but like not something that all baseball players or baseball coaches get to do. It sounded like a treat. And so when I approached her about it, she was on board, excited for the opportunity, especially as like it's a seamless transition out of the playing career and into the life after your playing career, which is something that like, as I was an older individual, some of my friends had started to move out of the baseball world and really struggled in that transition to their next stage in life. And so to be presented with an opportunity for it to come really, really quickly and organically and easy, I jumped at the opportunity, and I think I started work the Monday after Super Bowl Sunday, and I've never looked back since.
There's so much there, Daniel. I mean, we definitely want to get into your playing career, but even there, you just dissecting Driveline.
You have a couple days for us, Daniel. Can we do this split session, Stephen?
How are you supposed to bounce off a question off of that? All right, let's start, because then I'm like, you went from interviewing for the director of pitching to then like going to the pitching coach, which still is a pretty darn good gig. Let's start though with Chicago. Like, what did you learn, I guess, in Chicago bringing to Miami?
Well, for starters, it's first step at the major league level as a coach on the coaching side, and so learning how to interact with the new age of personalities. The game has gone younger, and so you almost have to stay younger as a coach to be able to relate to some of these guys. So I did learn a lot about that. How do you navigate egos? How do you navigate the different dynamics of a clubhouse and a pitching staff? And I think that's integrally important because it's something that really shapes the way that I like to do things, which is building relationships with guys. The new era of baseball where we do push development and we push things and almost take guys out of their comfort zone. Like, we're going to ask them to do some things and we're going to ask them to be vulnerable. And if we're going to do that, like, I need them to know that I have their back, that I know where they're coming from, that I've walked in their shoes. And so I think that that's really, really valuable. The second piece would be just, learning what an overall, like, overarching philosophy for an organization is. Like, what do you believe in? What do you want to stand on? What do you want to be known for? And while I didn't get to drive a lot of that because, I was just the assistant there, I did have a voice. So I did have the ear of the pitching coach. And so I did help at least like maneuver and deliver some of those things, but it was also just very cool to be able to sit back and observe. I do feel like I got to learn from a great pitching coach. Tommy Hotovy is very, very good. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now if I didn't spend the past 3 years with him. And like, I truly believe that, right? Like, yes, like talent matters, opportunity matters, but I wouldn't be the pitching coach that I am now without having learned underneath him and had him guide some of my development and growth. I think that's really like a good place to start, and hopefully it's less thorough and allows more room for questions for you guys.
Let me then go here. It's interesting, Stephen. I Daniel, and hearing you talk for 5 minutes, I feel a lot of what we've heard from members of this coaching staff already: relationship building, getting to know these guys, developing trust. Very difficult to do, especially when you're coming into an organization for the first time. Where do you begin with that, Daniel? And what have you been doing to make sure that you get to a place where you feel comfortable come March 27th on opening day, that the 5 men that start the season in the rotation that probably won't finish it, and you'll work with 10 different starting pitchers and the relievers, but they trust you and you know them on a deeper level to help connect with them?
Well, the first order of business was getting in touch with everyone. The onboarding process has become a little bit long and more thorough. And so unfortunately, baseball moves faster than the baseball media world moves faster than the baseball organizations do. And so, of course, the news broke before it had even been formally announced by the organization. And so we knew we were up against a time crunch and a time clock there. And so I got all the players' contact lists. We set up our first wave of phone calls. And each phone call was roughly, I would say the shortest one was probably 25 minutes. The longest one was 45 minutes to an hour. And really, it's just like what you said, just pouring into them, asking them questions, not just about baseball, but, what's their home life like? Do they like to travel? Do they like to play video games? Are they more introvert, extrovert? They have wives and kids and families. What do they like to do with their free time? And so like most of the conversation started with like 15 minutes plus of background information of truly like agnostic of baseball at all, just getting to know them. Obviously we ended up diving into more baseball specific things as, the calls went on. You want to know what their training is like, how many days a week are they throwing, lifting, where's their body weight at, anything that they've been focused on, the specifics. But really, like, I wanted it to be a more informal get to know you type of phone call. And I do think that we really, really accomplished that. And the conversations have rolled pretty seamlessly and pretty well since that point. There's been, various check-ins via text message, follow-up phone calls, and whatnot. But really, it's like setting the foundation for what the working relationship's going to look like. They know that they can call me and ask me about anything. It doesn't just have to be baseball. If they're, need advice on something, I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but like, I like it to be an open door that doesn't just have to be baseball, because we're around these guys for goodness, 8 months out of the year. Hopefully 9+ if, we are fortunate enough to make playoffs here in the near future. But like the day-to-day grind is real. And so building a relationship that transcends just baseball, I think really, really matters.
Daniel, did you work with any of the Marlins pitchers prior to this stop?
No, it is crazy, especially as much as people change places. But no, I don't believe actually Jesus Tinoco is the only one, I think.
He was pretty darn good last year for us.
What a spark plug.
He was awesome. And we were fortunate enough to get him with the Cubs, kind of in that initial waiver claim. So I got to know him for 2 to 3 weeks. We kind of identified a few things for him to work on, and again, like it helps. But 2 to 3 weeks isn't a ton of time, especially when you meet somebody during the course of the season. There's a little bit, more high stress, and he has to be ready to pitch that night. So a little bit different than meeting him in the off season, but he's been great. He's a great personality. He's always got a smile on his face, and he's quite a good pitcher as well. So it certainly helps.
Daniel, I also was curious to this because I think some pitching coaches get a reputation of working with the starters more than the bullpen because you have a bullpen coach. How do you kind of see that as your role as the pitching coach?
I guess the most important variable for me to lay out is that, like, as the head of a group, I guess you want to call it now, because everything in baseball now has become kind of a team of teams.
Sure.
Right? You don't just have one hitting coach anymore. You don't just have one pitching coach. And so you do have to be able to delegate responsibilities. I think one of the bigger things that I learned from Tommy Hotovy is just the power of delegation and the power of not having an ego. Like the answer doesn't have to come from me. The big fix for Sandy Alcantara doesn't need to come from me. If one of the assistants or bullpen coaches sees something and, brings it, I'm going to tell that guy to go have the conversation. Like, I want them to be empowered to coach. I want them to be, feel confident and comfortable going straight to a player. Now, obviously there's lines of communication that have to be checked, and you have to make sure that everybody's on the same page and everybody's up to speed and in the loop on things that are happening, because a lot is going on at the major league level on a daily basis. So communication is key, but I never want a guy on my staff to feel like he can't go talk to a player. That is just not a place that I can live in.
I apologize in advance, Daniel. I know we're going to bounce around a lot. You just talked about some of your relationship building and chatting with some of these guys that you'll have an opportunity to work with this season. You'll start with 13 pitchers. Even the best teams probably use 30, 35. This is wildly unfair for me to ask, but I'll do it anyway. If you want to get into individuals, feel free. Can you give me the 10,000-foot view as you started to look at this roster on the pitching side, what you see moving into 2025 and how excited you are to work with this team?
Oh, really excited. Ton of arm talent. It's not all that often that you can say we're in a rebuild. I think that's probably fair and accurate that we're in a little bit of a mini rebuild here, as we want to do some things differently, but you don't often have that much arm talent. And I think back to when I joined the Cubs in 2022, like they were still finishing up their rebuild at that point. And what we stepped into there, like, was not a great surplus of arm talent. It felt very much like a rebuild type of pitching staff and roster. And sure, there were a few nice pieces, especially the bullpen side. We had David Robertson, Michael Givens, and Chris Martin there that, it's nice to have those pieces to swallow at the back end. But if you're someone who has at least a little bit of common sense, you can easily see that those are likely guys that are going to be gone prior to July rolling around, because they're going to become trade acquisitions for teams that are buying and looking to build out their roster for the playoffs. And so, if you look at the second half of that season and look at the names that we ran through, I mean, we were just piecing it together. We were getting starts from Anderson Espinosa, and, Adrian Sampson was kind of our workhorse. It was just kind of this different dynamic and different world. And so you fast forward to where I'm at now with Miami, and you've got Sandy Alcantara sitting at the top of the rotation. You know that Yuri Perez is coming back at some point behind him. Until recently, we also had Jesus Luzardo, but like Edward Cabrera, I think there's a ton of untapped potential in there. And, I'm hopeful to be able to help him find his way to a little bit more consistency so that we can tap into the talent that everybody knows he has. And so, and then the bullpen's got a bunch of really nice pieces to it as well. And, don't crucify me for failing to mention anybody's name specifically, but like the overarching theme here is that, like, there is a ton of arm talent. We got some really unique guys that we're going to be able to deploy tactically. And I think I'm just really excited to, finally get to be in person with them and, in the grind with them.
All right. I'm going to take a step back now because you mentioned Bill Hiesel's name. Obviously an interesting relationship here. Both of you kind of in search of the same opportunity, and you end up working underneath Bill, who's overseeing this, but as the major league pitching coach, which is amazing. I remember, and Stephen, tell me if I'm totally crazy here, Bill was in college ball, maybe junior college, Division II, felt very unfulfilled, was trying to figure out and he never had bad coaches, but like, why couldn't he get more out of himself? Daniel, you've had an amazing, again, trajectory where I don't know if people know your story. You were the 4th overall pick in the late 2000s, and that's an opportunity that you're a 1%er, even less than that. I'm probably speaking out of turn, but I assume you probably feel like you didn't have the major league career that you wanted. When you have dove into the service of helping others, do you feel like this is more fulfilling and like helping young men now reach their potential and maybe opportunities you didn't get, if that's fair of me to ask? Maybe a little personal. I apologize if it is.
Not personal at all. And if you check if you do a Google search about the MLB draft, come around draft time, you will see my name pop up on occasion. And I mean, it's now working on the business side of this. Like, I totally get it. Like, would I have taken myself if I was running the Pirates organization back then, knowing what I know now? Probably not. And so did I have the career that like I thought that I was capable of having? Probably not. I will be very open and transparent. Like, I was a talented individual, like in terms of like raw stuff. I could throw hard back when left-handed pitchers, frankly, just didn't throw that hard. And so, there were things to attach yourself to in terms of appeal. But I also think that like I got drafted as a starting pitcher, and I don't think there was a very high probability that I was going to make it in the major leagues as a starting pitcher. And so that's just kind of the inefficiencies of the process back then when, there wasn't as much information available on players. Now we have draft combines and tons of workouts, and everybody has TrackMan data available. And so we do a lot better of, job of, creating player profiles, and I think making the selection process a lot more efficient. But to the real like sticking point of the question you asked, it is 100% what drives my like coaching goals and desire and like what I want to stand for. And that's not letting players slip through the cracks. I did, in my opinion, have like a pretty solid foundation level of talent, but I didn't really get developed. We didn't know anything about spin data. We didn't know much about breaking pitches. We weren't using pitch tracking tech back then. And, the biggest shortcoming for me is I struggled with breaking ball consistency. And, I just really didn't know much about how to create a different shape. It was really like centered around like, well, you just need to throw it in this area. But as we've moved forward and we understand more about it, like I had a pretty gyro slider, like throwing it in the area where they were telling me to throw it wasn't necessarily the best path forward for that particular pitch. But you have to know the pitch types and the traits and the characteristics of it to help guide someone where they want to execute it. But essentially, I felt like I slipped through the cracks. Like there were things that I could have been developed on. And that was what the eye-opening experience at Driveline is like I had never really had one breaking ball. And I went to Driveline, and through the pitch design process, I came out of there with 3 breaking balls. And to me, that shows you what the power of development can be. And like they weren't all just like fringe average pitches. Like they profiled as like pretty dang good offerings. And that was in 3 to 4 short months, like really actually probably 2.5, 3 months, because the pitch design process was really like knocked out 2/3 of the way through the off season. And all it takes is data, tech, feedback, and an action plan moving forward. And you can really execute on a lot of things. And so that was so eye-opening to me, is like, wow, like what other players are out there missing this opportunity or this potential that they don't even know that they can tap into. And so that's certainly been a driving force behind, what I want to be known for as a coach.
Could have been you and I, Kyle. We should have went to Driveline.
You know what? I lost Daniel 3 minutes ago. That's all I could think about, Steve. That could have been me. I got a 78-mile-an-hour fastball. I could have worked on that.
Tape of it.
What is interesting, Kyle, is when Daniel talks, there's just an intelligence that is far beyond mine. But he also reminds me a ton of when we spoke with Ryan Weathers. When Ryan Weathers was with us and we interviewed him, we were blown away. I mean, we're asking him simple questions like we're doing with you right now, and him just going on this different language, basically. I'm very curious. Was that the 45-minute conversation with Ryan Weathers? And if you don't want to share, what was that conversation like? Obviously, his big man, played in the majors, and he thinks like a major league pitcher.
Yeah, Ryan, I think if I remember correctly, Ryan was definitely one of the longer conversations that we had. But you can just tell, like, just how much pure joy he gets out of like talking pitching and thinking about baseball. Like it is very, very easy to tell. And so that conversation was really, really fun because we got to, talk about a bunch of concepts. When we first connected, he was also in Greenville, South Carolina, which obviously is 45 minutes away from Clemson. So that was an easy connecting point. He also lives in the Southeast in Alabama. I'm down here in Charleston, South Carolina. So we're not terribly far away from each other, and, could talk about the Southeast and what life is like down here and how it's, a little bit different than the time he spent in San Diego on the West Coast and all that good stuff. So there was like a really easy, door open to connect with him. But you're right in that, like, he also has a very, very high, strong aptitude for just like the pitching space. When we did connect on more of the finer points of baseball and he laid out all the things that he's been focused on and working on, they all lined up with things that I would have had him working on and focusing on, anyways. And so for him to have the right mindset and to be able to process, okay, how do I make myself the best version of myself? Like, he's already doing it, which makes coaching him really, really easy because you don't have to create the buy-in. He's already created for himself and he's the worker and wants to work. And, he's had a tremendous offseason thus far and put himself in a really good place.
Stephen, we said last week, if he didn't get hurt on that fluke injury, he was headed towards a trip to Arlington last summer. He was an all-star the way he was pitching. Now he's dropped the weight. He was over in Scotland getting in trouble in the streets, throwing. They didn't know what that guy was doing, throwing that ball. I saw that article. Thought it was very funny. Daniel, you brought up Clemson. If we could detour for a moment, are you thrilled that Dabo's finally dipping his toes into the transfer portal? He was very stubborn on that, Daniel.
Count me amongst those who didn't expect to be talking transfer portal on this phone call.
Well, you come to the right spot.
I love that segue. Honestly, so two big things. One, I think with the news this morning, we've also finally undone two of probably I think if he evaluates it the way that I do, he'll probably call them two of his like worst coaching decisions that he's made since he's run the program. And that was the coordinator hires from within. He promoted Brandon Streeter and he promoted Wes Goodwin, both of which, they aren't success stories at this point. Wes Goodwin had at least some success. Brandon Streeter was not very successful in his run as offensive coordinator. But bringing in Garrett Riley to replace Streeter a couple years ago, now making the move to bring in Allen to replace Wes Goodwin. Like, I love those moves. I think it brings back the identity that he wants to have and his program to be known for. And then obviously dipping toes into the transfer portal. I knew that one was just a matter of time. He had to figure out how to work through his process. And one thing that I'll say about Dabo Swinney is I think his view of how player compensation works is probably how every head coach in college football wishes that player compensation worked. And that's that you paid players based on their merit and the stats that they put up for your team, not paying them ahead of time before they've even played a down of football before your team. And that's the problem is like, he's trying to avoid the bidding war type of place, but he also knows that like he's paying his players X. If he goes and offers someone in the transfer portal Y that's greater than X, he's got some dilemma, and like, that's a hit to his culture. And as Dabo Swinney, like everything to him matters or centers around culture. And so he's tried to keep this synergy, and like, I will give him credit. Like, he's done a tremendous job of that. And I think that the other area that you have to at least consider is that the transfer portal is multifaceted. It's not just about entrances, it's about exits as well. And I do think that he's done a better job than really any other program in the country on the retention side of things. And that does matter. Like, you don't have to replace as much when you don't lose as much. All of that being said,
you're really good at this, Daniel. You're really good at this.
All that being said, I love that he is now dipping his toes in the transfer portal. We went and got a starting defensive end. We went and got wide receiver depth. And now we just got a high upside linebacker. And so I don't think those will be the last additions. I think you'll see more in the spring, but I'm definitely excited about it.
So that was Reese Davis on Clemson.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
I said that was Reese Davis on Clemson. Go ahead, Kyle.
I just said I think I picked up. I think you like Clemson football. Is that fair to say, Daniel?
Despite working in baseball, football is still a passion of mine. Clemson football specifically, but really just football in general. I love the game of football.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Okay, I'm glad I asked about the trend. I knew we were headed in the right direction. Let's get back to pitching. Again, this one feels a little unfair because I think people would have different answers. There's a human element to this game, but obviously technology is so important. You obviously now understand that firsthand from your experience at Driveline, which has unlocked the potential of so many current major league pitchers. Where are we with pitching in today's game, Daniel, knowing that there's a human side to this? And Sandy will go have games where he just doesn't feel right throwing his slider, but it's part of the game plan and we have to adjust. But the data says to throw it. Like, where are we at in pitching in today's game?
Well, I think to the example that you laid out specifically, yeah, you go into each game with a game plan. But that's a hypothetical, right? Like, you're going to use data, you're going to use predictive measures and outcomes to guide a lot of that. But that's just part of the process. Once you get out there and once, the first inning is underway, you don't really know what he's going to have on that given day. Like, maybe the changeup's not there. Maybe the slider is. Maybe the slider's not there, or vice versa. And so I think it's, you go in with the plan, but then you have to adjust accordingly. For someone like Sandy, the game's probably relatively easy when all things are clicking. He's got elite stuff. He's got pretty close to elite command. He's a bulldog. He's got a really good frame. He puts himself in good shape. He takes, he checks a lot of the boxes, but at the end of the day, like, if there's a game where he doesn't have his slider, we're not going to just, bang our head against the wall and keep throwing it if it's not there. We're probably going to deviate to something else. He's got other weapons, all the while knowing that at some point we're probably going to continue to mix in sliders to see if he ends up finding it. Because a lot of times guys are different in inning 3 and inning 5 than they were in inning 1. And so it's not, you don't write it off for the entire day. You just don't put yourself into bad situations and bad scenarios by sticking to something that's clearly not working. Now, sample size plays into that. You don't make a judgment off the first slider he throws. You're probably waiting to see a bucket of, 5 to 7 sliders before you decide if he has his good slider that day. But you also do need to be somewhat quick to adjust so that, he doesn't exit the game in the 3rd inning because we've had a bad game plan, or we stuck to a game plan that wasn't executable with what he was presenting with that day.
I know by definition a quality start is 6 innings, less than 3 runs, but kind of like what Kyle was asking with this day and age of pitching, what's a quality start for you?
It's a loaded question, right? As we've gone through data and analytics, and there are numbers that show us that pitchers don't need to turn the lineup over a 3rd time, that, that is where, like, sometimes things come off the rails a little bit. That's a really, really good question. I do think that if you give me 5 scoreless, that should be considered a quality start. I think if you give me 5 with 1 run or 2 runs, it's probably a quality start. And that, like, I can hand that off to 3 or 4 bullpen guys to close off the deal. And we're likely in a game scenario or a game state where we have a chance to win that game. And so rather than it being attached to, specific numbers, to me, it's about, like, game flow. And some of the game theory is like, if you hand it off to the bullpen with a lead, like, you've probably done your job. Nobody wants to give up 4 runs in 5 innings or 4 runs in 6 innings just because your offense had a good day. Like, they're probably not coming away feeling great from that, but they also did the task at hand, which was give us a chance to win the game. Sometimes, you give up a couple runs here or there, and, like, we have to be okay with that because you might not the next time out. And so, if the offense spots us 10 runs and you end up giving up 4 through 6 innings, like, to me, that's still a quality start because we're going to win that game. And it's a lot
contextual.
I think that there has to be a context applied to it. Especially as, like, we've gone with openers. Like, does a starter that follows the opener still get a quality start if he throws 6 scoreless after the opener? I mean, technically not, because he's not pitching as a starter, but
right,
to me, that's probably a quality start as well. So, there's some intricacies that have changed the way that we evaluate, like, what a quality start is. But at the end of the day, like, keep the game within reason, give us a chance to win. And I think that's probably going to be a good place to go.
How much has your job changed or not changed with PitchCom only checking over possibly 2 times? Better get him the 3rd time before he takes off. How much has that changed the landscape from a technology and a rule standpoint in pitching?
Well, the rule standpoint to me is a good one. I think PitchCom's great. I think, I no longer have to print sign cards off for pitchers to have in their hats. We don't have to worry about signs being stolen from second base, etc. But that's brought new, developments that are things that we now have to account for, like a much larger dedication to pitch tipping. And so we have to make sure guys are buttoned up. And so you're starting to see teams put some things in place to systemize how guys come set. Where's their glove position? How can we, take a lot of the legwork out, off of the player and make it about like our processes and how we do things. So that's definitely one area. I had another one off the top of my head. The controlling the running game. I think you're starting to see, catcher arm strength and pop time and transition time become more of a thing. I think you're starting to see, can guys be quicker to home plate? Can they hold the ball when they need to? And can they combat that front? Because I came from a division in the NL Central where, you're facing the Reds, you're facing the Brewers. They run a whole lot. The Pirates have some team speed. They have guys that can take advantage of it. The Cardinals, maybe not as, much of a threat as those guys, but they also have really smart veterans who, if you fall asleep on, can swipe bags from under your nose. And so I think you've seen a, concerted effort to controlling the running game and combating pitch tipping, which has changed from some of the other dynamic back before we had PitchCom and there weren't rules on like how many times you could pick over, et cetera.
Kyle, I got some outside baseball questions, unless you want to wrap it up with baseball.
No, not really. I thought the running game was very interesting. I feel like there are certain teams we see throughout the year where it seems very important to that particular pitching staff that, hey, we're not giving you just the free 90 here. Like, that's important because a base hit's going to score that guy. Is there more of an emphasis more than ever now on controlling the running game, do you think? Or is that just kind of where we're at in today's game?
I think that, the genesis of the rule changes that they wanted more action and wanted more excitement, right? Like minimizing the shifting of infielders. You want more balls in play to turn into hits. You want more action on the base paths because stolen bases had really, like those stolen base attempts had really plummeted for a number of years in number of consecutive years. And so I just think that they wanted the game to have more action in it and for it to be more exciting. And I think that stolen base attempts are part of that. I think that more runners on base because more ground balls get through that 4-hole, I think is a good thing for baseball. Now, it's my job as a pitching coach to try to combat that. Okay, what are we going to do to prevent the number of tips, which means you have to dial in your looks, you have to dial in your holds. Maybe you improve pickoff moves a little bit, but really it's about reducing the number of attempts, not necessarily trying to create as many outs as possible on the base paths. But yeah, it's a game of adjustments, right? You get presented with rule changes and then you put something in place to combat some of the way that the game changes because of those rule changes. And so, it is like a little bit of a back and forth, but at the end of the day, like we have all of this data at our disposal. It's going to tell us and paint the story or paint the picture, tell the story for us. It's our job to be able to make the interventions and adjustments that we need to stay at the forefront of what's happening.
And just one note from me, Steve, and then take it away. Well, last year was very much interesting in that regard for the Marlins. They caught more men stealing than anybody in baseball with 45, but also allowed 139 stolen bases, was like 6th or 7th most in the league. So you could catch them, but they were also running. So very interesting. But Steven, wrap us up, my man.
Yeah. Day in the life in the off season for you. How does it look?
Clemson transfer portal.
I'm up at 6 a.m. to get my daughter ready for school. I drop her off at the bus stop. That's usually around like 7:15. I'll get back home. If time allows for it, I'll try to get a workout in some capacity. I've got a decent little like home gym that I can, usually get something in 45 minutes or so. So I like to start my day there. Then it's a cup of coffee and right in front of the computer. We've got a lot of work to do and, spring training's right around the corner. And so, we've got all the player check-ins and player plan stuff, but we also have a lot of like logistical things going on to get ready for that report date. And so it's really just about making sure I bucket the time that I need to get the task that I have for that day done. I'll usually be done in front of the computer by about like 3:30 or 4, and then I'll try and knock out a few phone calls to players or text messages to players at that point. But that's an ideal. A lot of times text messages or phone calls will come in throughout the day, and you just get to them as you need to.
Do you try to eat 3 meals a day? You didn't mention your breakfast.
Oh, eating is not something that I do a ton of. So I am someone who engages in intermittent fasting. So breakfast is usually cut out. My first meal usually doesn't happen till like 2 to 3 p.m. And so like I'll eat a meal, then I'll probably have like another, like, I guess if it works out this way, I'll have another meal at like 7:30, and then maybe a snack at like 9:30. And that's kind of my eating window.
Wow. I've heard a lot of people doing that. Obviously it looks good on you.
Well, one thing that I learned in 2022 is that the food at the major league level is not quite as healthy as it is at the minor league level. And there's a lot more of it. And self-discipline has not like always been my greatest asset with food. Obviously I have discipline because I can fast, but discipline when something is put in front of me that looks delicious.
Mac and cheese.
Yeah,
I'm going to game spread,
and I'm going to try it. And so I have found that the fasting lifestyle has kept the bad body weight off for the most part.
We can relate.
I hear you. Well, Daniel, thank you for the time. We are so pumped to really get a chance to meet you in Jupiter in spring training, get to know you, watch you and this entire staff go to work. Stephen and I have talked about it ad nauseum, but like, the attention to detail and the care that you guys all seem to have for like the guys is amazing to me. We wish you nothing but the luck, but good luck on the pitching side. But, most importantly, the Dabo situation, he's got his DN. Klubnik's back for you. I mean, this is shaping up to be a great 2025. So thanks again, Daniel.
You got it. This was an absolute blast. Thanks for making it really, really fun.
All right. So that was Daniel Moskos. That was a fun interview. We had a chance to chat with Daniel. We'll chat more about it in just a second, but that's good stuff, man. Hey, do not forget that now we've already chatted about this a little bit, but make sure you go to marlins.com/tickets. All these single game tickets are on sale now.
Rumors are true.
Rumors are true. I did confirm that the pink was not the breast cancer awareness. That was Barbie night, but I think those can also go hand in hand there, Stephen, right?
Yes, they can. But I love the jerseys. I know we talked about it before we had Daniel on, but just love what the Marlins have done with not only selling these tickets, but also what you get with them. It's just it's a nice touch. All
right, you ready for this next transition?
Sure. Let's see.
Don't forget FanFest coming up February 8th. I circled back around on the tickets, and now we're going to remind you that FanFest coming up February 8th. We can actually tell everybody now, too, Stephen, that we are going to broadcast live from 5 to 7 p.m. from inside the Biscayne Bay Brew Hall. There's a lot going on out on the West Plaza. We're going to transition to inside the ballpark this year, but it's on Saturday, February 8th. It's coming up. Admission, as always, is free, right? You park for free, you do your thing. So it's super fun, it's amazing. It's back on a Saturday, it's free, 5 to 7. We're going to rotate coaches, players. I would imagine some executives as well will work with our communications team. Yeah, but it's going to be great. Can't wait. Looking forward to it. So it's a really fast 2 hours. So that's that. So yeah, marlins.com/tickets. Get your tickets for the season. Make sure you join us on February 8th from 4 to 8 p.m. at FanFest. And we will hear from Matt Mervis in a couple of minutes. But first, any thoughts as we actually have an opportunity to listen back to that interview? I thought that was cool, man. It was fun to listen to him.
Yeah, it really was. And I don't want to pick any favorites, but I guess I will in this case. This was one of probably my favorite interview that we've done because just the way that he's been able to articulate every question we asked, he came back with an answer that you learn something from, right? And that's not to say that the other individuals we had didn't do that, but in the way that Daniel really expounds on things and dives into every little detail. I mean, even a simple question about the pitch comm, him diving into, yes, the pitch comm is great. It eliminates sign stealing, but he then goes into, holding runners on. And that was a huge discussion for the Marlins last year. But just his mind from a baseball perspective is unique. He comes from, a place where he was a high draft pick. And, you asked him, Kyle, I mean, he struggled mightily and he's turned that into this, which is a pretty darn good coaching career. The other element to this, and I'm excited about, is he worked with some interesting arms in Chicago. Justin Steele being one of them. He was a big reason why his changeup changed so much last season. And then Shota Imanaga, we've talked about some of those Japanese pitchers coming to the States and picking up on different pitch grips, and maybe even a guy like him. How much did Moskos learn from someone like him and maybe apply everything that someone learned, you learn from someone else, right? So now you're getting someone in Daniel Moskos that was a top pick, right? That has pitched in major league games. Now you have a guy that has worked with some great individuals. We talked about his Chicago days. He also was a pitching coach with the New York Yankees system as well. But all of that wealth, all of that knowledge, and he's got the trifecta, the ability to communicate. I really want to see what he's able to do with this staff, which is just stacked, I think, from Sandy to Yuri when he gets back, to Ryan Weathers. I think it's a very, very interesting hire, and I'm excited to see what the outcome is.
Yeah, the one thing I keep coming back to, I've been so amazed, and shame on me, maybe I shouldn't be, just the care factor that we continue to hear from this coaching staff.
Did you not hear that before? Because I was not here, and I'm not trying to call it, but what is that something that is completely different than anything that you've interviewed?
No, not at all. But there's been so much change and turnover in these last 4 to 5 months. Obviously, I mean, the entire staff has turned over with the exception of Brandon Mann and Austin Lamke, who handles the video replay behind the scenes. But to me, it just feels like that under Peter Bendix, and obviously he makes the hire of Clayton McCullough. I just feel like I was in the room with them. It's like the point of emphasis was, before we teach them more fundamentals of baseball and like what we're going to do, we're just going to care so deeply about them as human beings. I just feel like every person on the staff we've talked to, they've talked about earning the trust of the players. Like, it just feels very intentional to me, and they all seem to be on the same page that we're going to get these guys about them as human beings before we get to Jupiter and start diving into their pitching mechanics or their hitting mechanics or the way we're going to field or what positions they're going to play. I just think that lends itself to so much success down the road, because I just think as human beings in general, I don't mean for this to be too deep. It's like, but when you feel like somebody cares about you, you're going to get the most out of that individual, and they're not going to hide anything from you when they feel like things aren't maybe going well, or like, gosh, what you're trying to teach me, Daniel, it doesn't feel right. But you've earned that trust and you've developed that. I just think it ultimately lends itself to just being so good down the road. And like, I don't know, I'm so in love with this new coaching staff, and it's not that I wasn't previously. I hate that we have to say that. The care factor has been there just as much with other staffs, but I have just found with this new staff in particular, before they want to dive into the X's and O's with us, like, they just continue to bring up these guys as people and getting to know them and, like, really grabbing the best from them, which I think is really cool.
I think another important thing, and then we can get Maddie on in a sec, but I think
Maddie.
Big part of that, Kyle, is a lot of times your title sometimes can people, where like a coach's reputation is what? Like, when you think of a coach, you think of someone that is higher up than you, that knows more than you, that can yell at you if you screw up.
Authoritative.
Authoritative, right? I don't think in this takeover regime, whatever you want to call it, I don't think anyone is higher above anyone. And I think it's much easier to say that than actually do it. I think when Peter came in here and talked about being collaborative and initiative and everyone together, I think that's much easier said than done. But I think that's what he wants the coaches to kind of be like as well, where if a player doesn't feel like you're like, old school yelling, here's why you're not at this level, here's why if you can kind of connect where you both kind of feel like an equal, I think that trust opens up. And I think that's the approach that the coaching staff has at least shown us.
Yeah, and another one of my thoughts that I omitted, and then I'll send it to the Matt Mervis interview. I think they've been so intentional with like making sure they get to know these guys as human beings, and it goes actually back to what we discussed early on. There's only 5 arbitration eligible players, which means you have a very young team, very young. And all these young guys, they're going to go through struggles in the major leagues and at times feel helpless and like, how that they're going to release me. They're going to let go of me. They don't believe in me. They don't trust me. Like I haven't gotten a hit in darn near a month. But if you build that trust and get to know them as human beings, you're going to know how they tick. You're going to know when it's okay to approach them, to help them through those struggles, and like let guys know it's okay. Like I know that's so silly, and like ultimately it's about wins and losses, and go out there and play baseball and field and pitch and hit. And if you do 3 things really well, you're going to win a lot of games. But it really is so much deeper than that, because this team is so young. There are going to be huge ups and downs, which the best teams in baseball within reason, you try to limit those ginormous roller coaster rides, right? You snap the 4-game losing streak with a win instead of it making 7 or 8. And I'm not saying that's what's going to happen with the Marlins, but you have a higher percentage chance to go through that huge emotional roller coaster.
There's characteristics that come with a young team.
Right. So I think that is where a lot of this intent behind, like, know your personnel as a human being, know how they tick, make sure they trust you, love on them, man. Take care of them. Let them know we're going to make them better, even if it's at the major league level, the hardest level, with all these eyeballs and the TV cameras and people scrutinizing your work. I think that's where a lot of the intent comes from too. I don't know if
you nail on the head, man. And I got nothing else for you.
All right, sounds good. We'll let's send it off to the Matt Mervis interview now. All right, before Matt Mervis joins us here on the Marlins Hot Stove Show, wanted to remind everybody that, this is coming up a little over a week and a half. Come out to Lone Depot Park for Monster Jam. You can scan the QR code if you're watching. Go to marlins.com/Monster Jam, January 25th and the 26th. Stephen, are you excited to go again this year?
Am I excited? Of course I am, to see the Gravedigger.
Right
after my birthday, which is on the 24th, by the way. Do not forget. Of course. It was awesome last year. Can't wait to see it this year. And always a spectacle. I will always say that.
It is. All right. Well, very good. So let's welcome on our next guest on the show tonight. We were chatting, and they didn't know each other too well, but we were chatting with Daniel Moskos earlier in the program. He was the pitching coach for the Chicago Cubs. And now Matt Mervis, who formerly of the Chicago Cubs organization, is joining us. Matt, thank you so much for taking some time for us tonight. We'll start with Monster Jam. You a Monster Jam guy? You diving into the Gravedigger? What do you have for us?
I've never been, but I've always, whenever those clips pop up on Instagram or whatever, I always watch. So I'm excited to see what they got.
Would you get in the driver's seat? Would you take one for a spin, do a backflip maybe?
Maybe in a simulator. I don't know if I would do the real deal.
All right. Against contract negotiations. I get that. Against the contract rules. Matt, I got one for you. And Stephen, take it away after this. Welcome to Miami. We saw you a couple of years ago, got your first big league hit against the Fish. I remember it well. It was at Wrigley Field. How excited are you to get this opportunity now with the Marlins, man?
I'm very excited. I think it's going to be a great opportunity for me. I know a few people. You mentioned Moskos. I know Conine very well. I know Graham Pauley, Alon Leichman, the new pitching coach, the other pitching coach, along with Moskos. So I think it'll be a pretty good transition for me, and I'm really excited for the opportunity.
Matt, what did you learn about yourself in Chicago? I know that you had hoped to had a bigger impact, but you've had such a really good minor league career. What did you learn from being a Cubby?
I learned a lot. Obviously I struggled a good bit last year. Hit the ball hard, just had some bad luck and some swing and miss in 23. So just, the more at bats I get, I think the better off I'll be, and just learning to, stick to my plan. I like you said, I have good minor league numbers, and the last 2 years I've gotten to the big leagues and tried to kind of prove it rather than just letting the game come to me. So That's my plan this year. Just stick to what I'm good at and let the results happen.
How's the offseason been for you, particularly with just, the trade to Miami?
It's been really good. I think, the change of scenery will be good for me. I finished up the last 5 weeks last season coming off of injury. So just really getting healthy, making sure my body's moving properly, getting some strength back in the hand that I broke, and just really getting back into the swing of things.
Matt, did the trade catch you off guard a little bit?
So I was on a flight, actually. So definitely caught me off guard. I didn't have Wi-Fi for the first hour of the flight, and I guess the trade happened like immediately after we took off. So it was a Sunday, football Sunday, so I bought the Wi-Fi to watch Red Zone, and I got a couple texts from one of the Cubs assistant GMs, my agent, and actually Aram Layton, who I'm friends with, the owner of Just Baseball, and they all text me saying, "Hey, you need to answer the phone. Call us when you can." And so, yeah, I was definitely caught off guard.
And
where were you headed?
Very close. Oh, sorry, Stephen. Go ahead.
You're not going to believe this. I was headed to Fort Lauderdale, so I was very, very close to the stadium. It was my dad's birthday, so we just spent a couple days down there. But I could have taken the drive right up to the stadium if I needed to.
Do you tan well, Matt? You got to use a lot of sunscreen.
No, I'm a tanner. I have some foreign blood in me, so Middle Eastern blood, so I tan well.
Wow. Okay. Now you mentioned Aram Layton, who runs Just Baseball. You're close with him. Aram also extremely close with Griffin Conine. You guys went to Duke together. A lot of Griffin questions. Did he always look this jacked in college? He takes that shirt off in the clubhouse. It's like, whoa, baby. He was in the weight room doing chest today.
That's what he's always looked like as far as I can remember. I think I walked in freshman year, and it was like, this is a different level of baseball as soon as I saw Griff.
So it's actually funny, Matt, to get on a serious note, like Griffin, very similar to you, like put up big numbers, and then last year finally gets his chance to come up and has an impact. He obviously is with the Marlins now. Do you guys have those conversations like when you are traded, like Griffin's like, well, listen, now it's, your turn, or here's kind of how I was able to do it?
Yeah, we've talked hitting a bunch over the last few years, and actually Aram's included in a lot of those conversations. But we're similar hitters. We're big power hitting lefties. But obviously we both want to cut down on the strikeout rate and hit for more of an average too. So there's a lot that goes into it between the two of us and a bunch of our other Duke hitters that work together and bounce ideas off each other. But I think the main sentiment was excitement. We were just pumped to be teammates again. Adam Lasky, who's in Double-A last year at the Marlins, was my college roommate. So we're going to get a spring training house for a few of us, and just happy to be back together.
So your new home, Lone Depot Park, you've played there before in 2023 with Team Israel. What was that experience like for you?
It was a ton of fun. I mean, that was the first experience I had in that kind of environment with, full stadium, passionate fans. Obviously that was before my debut. So that was kind of my introduction into the big stage of baseball. And I loved the stadium, the fan interaction, everything about it.
Matt, you mentioned a fresh start. I'm sure you've had amazing coaches. You were a part of an iconic organization, made your major league debut at Wrigley Field, something you'll obviously never forget. But when you talk about a fresh start, as you've thought about that, you've processed all this, what excites you the most, man?
I think it's just the overall being in a new place, having the opportunity to reestablish myself. Absolutely nothing negative to say about the Cubs and how they've treated me. Just, sometimes guys need a change of scenery to have things click. And I'm hoping that's what's in store for me.
Have you had an opportunity to chat with Pedro Guerrero? I know he's reached out to a lot of guys.
Yeah, I've talked to Pedro. I've talked to Derek and Joe, the hitting director. So I've had a good conversation with all three of them. I think they have a pretty good plan for me once I get down to spring training. I've told them what I'm working on, and they're on board. So I'm excited to get rolling.
When you talk about working on things, this is probably going to go a lot of different directions. I apologize. What type of player are you, man? Like, you want to see every piece of analytical information to make you better? Do you just take the game on a more human level, try to fix your swing as the way things feel? Like, I know we're in a day and age where there's so much information available to you, man, and there's so much to ingest if you want to. What type of player are you when you're looking for that feedback and stuff?
I think when I'm going best, I'm more of a feel hitter. I just kind of, let the swing happen and trust it when I'm in the game situation. I probably get myself into a little bit of trouble because I do like the analytics and video and stuff, but it's hard enough to hit in the big leagues. You make it harder when you're thinking about your swing and how you want to hit certain pitches. So I think I'm much more of a feel hitter, especially when things are going well.
I always feel like a teacher when I ask this question, but like, what are your goals coming into this year?
Just get my at bats and improve, really. I don't like setting number goals because if I don't, hit for a ton of power in the first half of the season, I don't want to sell out for power in the second half. So
sure.
I won't put a number on anything, but just have a good season in general, whatever that may look like, whatever my role is, just do that well and help us win.
I had a just question, and if I'm also going too far, you tell us. But I'm always curious with baseball players because I could never do it because mentally I just couldn't handle the failure, and then go 3 for 3, feel like you're figuring something out, and then go hitless for 10 straight games. How do you deal with failure?
That's something that I've had to work on a bunch. It's a hard game. It's a mental game, and there's different ways that guys get through the failure, whether it's, take your mind off the game for the night or a day or two and just regroup. I find it best to talk to people, just, distract myself, whether it's my girlfriend, my parents, my friends, go get a dinner with a couple teammates, whatever it is. Typically on those dinners, guys don't talk about baseball. We just kind of, get away from the game a little bit because the season's so long. So, those are my outlets during the year.
Who was like your veteran with Chicago that kind of took you under their wing?
Early on, it was Eric Hosmer, who's the man. He's awesome. He's such a good dude. Was very, engaged in spring training. And when I got called up and just helping me prepare myself, get ready. And then my locker was next to Dansby's in the Major League clubhouse. So, and he was the same way. He was just, obviously he's a competitor. He's a winner. So anything that he can help me do to help the team win, he wanted to share with me. So I had two pretty good guys to look up to.
Matt, I love when we get to know more about you guys on a personal level. You grew up in the DMV area. A lot of fellas grow up playing some hoops, man. Why baseball? Who got you in love with the game? And I guess on the back end of that, when did you really start to take it serious? We're like, I want to be a professional baseball player. Not everybody's wired like that.
Yeah, I got to credit my brother for the sports influence. He's 2.5 years older, and he controlled the TV remote. I didn't have a say in it. So, when he wanted to watch SportsCenter, that's what we did, and I just fell in love with sports from there. I played a little bit of football and basketball growing up through my freshman year of high school, but I was never going to be a basketball player. I just didn't love it as much as the other two. And my freshman year playing football, I kind of jammed my wrist blocking and had to miss a tournament or two on the weekends. And I was like, it's time to give that up and just focus on baseball.
You got to be a little off to play football, in my opinion. You got to have a little loose screws. You got to be able to run into a wall and not have any reaction.
You can see the guys in the locker room that were serious football players, and they're just tell they're wired a little bit different.
Matt, when did you start to separate yourself as a baseball player? There are a lot of guys. I know not everybody's like Bryce Harper playing 8 years, up a level. But like, were you young and like Matt Mervis always stood out on the little league field, and then high school? Was that always kind of the case for you?
Yeah, I think I was always one of the better players on the field. Especially, I was big always growing up, so that helps. I always threw a little bit harder. But I probably didn't separate myself until high school. I had 3 ACC baseball players on my high school team. and
Wow.
there were no freshmen. In my high school class, so we all came in together, and a couple other Division I players. So we had a really good JV baseball team, and as we developed over the next 2 or 3 years, we could tell that we had a really good group, and it was better than like the Maryland high school baseball group.
When'd you hit your first home run?
Not until I was like 12, I think. I was always jealous of the kids that could hit balls over the fence when I was younger, because I was always big, but I was a line drive hitter growing up. I just wanted to get hits. So it took me a little while.
And who was your guy growing up as far as baseball players?
I love David Ortiz. I mean, any left-handed slugger when I was growing up, Prince Fielder, Ryan Howard, you name it. But for some reason, I always found myself watching Ortiz videos.
So you played a little bit of football. You mentioned you were on a plane. You bought the Red Zone. You're from the DMV area. Are you a happy camper? Are you a Commanders fan? Like, did you win your fantasy football? What's the deal here with the football side of the Matt Mervis thing?
I am a Commanders fan. It's finally
Congratulations.
the first time in my life, a good time, besides RG3's rookie year. It's finally a good time to be a Commanders fan. Very exciting. Came in second in my fantasy league. I had the first overall pick, and I took McCaffrey, so I am pretty proud that I still finished in second. Yeah, I had a pretty good waiver wire year, but couldn't finish it off.
You didn't.
How do you feel about the matchup against Detroit?
I'm hoping the bye week threw them off a little bit, like the college football playoff teams. But the offense is going to compete. I'm just hoping the defense will get the ball back.
You didn't realize how much happiness Jaden Daniels was going to bring you, did you, Matt?
I did not. I mean,
I don't think anyone did, honestly. There were so many concerns about his small frame and everything, but if you can play, you could play.
He's like Lamar. I mean, they just don't get hit. They find ways to avoid contact and stay healthy. So,
what's the offseason look like for you? What what are we, a month away till pitchers and catchers report, basically? When did you start your offseason program? And once you get to spring training, the days can be long. Guys, you want to keep fresh. You don't want to grind yourself into the ground. Like what does this all look like for you?
Yeah, I think I took probably a week or two off from the weight room after the season ended, just try to let the body rest a little bit, and then got back in there. Hitting, I took a little bit longer off than I have the last couple of years just because of the hand injury. Just wanted to make sure that I was rested and back to full strength. But I'm up to hitting. This week will be my first hitting 4 times. It's been Monday, Wednesday, Friday before this, and I'm working out 4 days a week, doing some mobility stuff on the other days. So it's a full schedule, but I'm feeling good.
I might be ignorant not to know this, but what happened with your hand, Matt?
I broke my hamate right around July 4th.
Okay. Wow. Which hand?
Yeah.
Right hand.
Right hand. Okay. What was that process, the rehab process like?
It's honestly pretty simple. I had the surgery, and then after that, it was 2 weeks with stitches. Once the stitches come out, it's just about strengthening the hand and pain tolerance getting back into play.
Matt, can you take us? I think Stephen brought this up a little bit, but like the failing side of baseball, it's like it never ends. You're trying to like achieve what seems to be unsustainable, which is perfection. You're not going to do it. How long did it take you to learn that? Like, I'm going to fail, but I need to learn how to harness the failure and turn it into good things.
Yeah, I'm still learning it, honestly. It's a constant process. And I think once I learned to, remove myself from the individual at bat of the failure and, kind of zoom out a little bit, learn from what happened, what went wrong, learn the game plan a little bit better, adjust a little bit quicker to whether it's, a certain team's approach to get me out or a league-wide approach, whatever it may be. It's a lot easier to move on from the failures when you look at it from a wider lens than from analyzing every individual at bat.
Matt, you're you're a young guy. and now you're an old man on this roster. Are you in a comfort role of leading? Like, you know, I know you've had some great role models around you in Chicago, but are you a natural leader? Is that something that you look forward to doing in the clubhouse this season?
Yeah, I think I am. It's and part of that's credit to just being a bigger guy growing up. You kind of just get the attention whether you want it or not. But I've had that role for a few different teams. You know, last year in AAA we had a few older guys to start the season, but you know, just over the course of the AAA movement, there's so much that goes on there. I ended up being one of the oldest guys by the end of the year, so I had to assume that leadership role again. And I think it'll be fun. It'll be a fun young group. I think a lot of guys will have plenty of energy and excitement to show up to the ballpark every day and hopefully, spend some time with each other in the locker room, pregame, postgame, and off the field. So it'll be a lot of fun getting to know these guys and going through the season together.
Got a couple more left, Kyle. Your dad is in Fort Lauderdale, if I'm not mistaken.
That was just vacation.
Okay, because I was curious, man. That's a nice little getaway home
Yeah.
for the winter. Have you explored Miami at all? Are you a Miami guy?
And the only times I've been were the college trip to the U and the World Baseball Classic. So I've done very little exploration, but in the few trips I've had there, it's been awesome.
I'll give you some good date night spots to bring the miss.
I need those.
All right. Kyle, go ahead.
Happy wife, happy life, Stephen. Stephen recently married. Matt, you have a girlfriend. We'll see what transpires there. Hey, this might be a little premature. Do you intend to play in the World Baseball Classic again if you have the opportunity?
Absolutely. I would love to. And I've been doing my best to recruit a little bit. I know Alone will do the same thing. And, it's right at home in Miami in 2026. So I won't have to do the cross-country flight again. I'll just drive over the ballpark, and it'll be like another day.
Can you peel back the curtain a little bit for me? I'd love to know what this spring training house looks like. And are you guys gathering around the TV playing PlayStation or Xbox? And what's this look like at nighttime in this spring training house, Matt, in this bachelor pad?
I couldn't tell you. I've been in Arizona with a different group the last couple of years. So, we're all friends, but we all interact differently, so I'm sure it'll be plenty of college basketball that time of year.
Okay,
we'll have to find a place to watch the Super Bowl somewhere, but other than that, got to see what happens.
Imagine the ladies walking into that house, the girlfriend walks in.
Hey.
You boys are so messy. Oh, I can see it now. Keep the place clean, Matt. Keep her happy.
That's the plan. I'll do what I can.
Are you a Mario Kart guy? I can just envision you guys playing Mario Kart on the Wii during spring training at night. Do you play video games or?
I play a little bit. I'm not a big gamer, but if there's 5 guys living in a house, then we're going to have to figure something out. So
what about growing up? Did you do MVP baseball? Did you do Little League World Series? Anything?
MVP 2005 is my favorite game with Manny on the cover. My favorite game ever created. I played some of that NBA Street. Love that. Other than that, a little bit of Call of Duty, but mainly sports games.
This is a guy that has intimate knowledge of the PlayStation 2 system, Stephen, by the sounds of things.
That's what I grew up on.
Yep. Are you a Cameron crazy? You have any videos you could share with us? You going nuts, shirtless in the Cameron crazy section from college?
I wish. We practiced and lifted in the afternoon, so by the time we finished up, it was hard to get there by tip-off. But the Duke baseball locker room is underground in Cameron Indoor, so we would typically just put the game on TV and mute it and listen to the stadium, the noise just through the floor pretty much. We were always a little bit late on TV, but we got the excitement.
I didn't know that the locker room would be under Cameron. That's insane.
It is for now. I think they're going to do some renovations soon, but yeah, that's where we were.
Who was there at the time?
My freshman year was Tatum, Harry Giles. Junior year was Zion, Cam Reddish, RJ Barrett.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I think senior year was that might have been Derek Lively, or I might be missing a year.
What was that? 2020 what?
2020.
2020?
Yeah, I think I'm missing a year in there.
I have a real problem on my hands tonight for the viewing audience. We're recording this on Tuesday. I am a graduate of the University of Miami, Matt, and the Duke Blue Devils are a 24.5-point favorite over my Canes tonight, 2 years removed from a Final Four. It's a dumpster fire. It's a disaster. And what's that fella's name? The big kid, this sensational freshman?
Cooper Flag.
What? Oh, God, he's going to do things I've never
man.
seen before tonight. This is going to be
That
so
dude is
sad.
unbelievable.
Yeah, he's coming off. I think he had 42 maybe last game. So,
well, you can
he's got a
double
hot
that
hand,
because
right?
tonight's going to be a spectacle.
So this 2020 roster features Matthew Hurt, Wendell Moore, Mark Williams, and Jalen Johnson. Does that ring a bell?
That does. Yeah, I think Jalen Johnson maybe left the team during the season, but they still had a pretty good run.
Yep. And then 2019, Vernon Carey, Trey Jones, Cassius Stanley. Wow.
Yeah, that was my sophomore year.
Okay. Well, the point is, you guys had some great basketball teams. So give me your Mount Rushmore, or at least give me your 4 teams that rank in fandom for you. Commanders being 1. Who's number 2? Who's number 3? Who's number 4? I don't care the sport.
Commanders obviously number 1. The Duke University football team has been excellent the last 3 years. We're really excited about what's going on there. Just got a really good transfer quarterback. Number 3, say Duke basketball.
Okay.
And number 4, I don't really have one. Those are my main 3. I'm not a big I'm not a big NBA fan. I'm not a big NHL fan.
No soccer.
No soccer. No, I'll say my girlfriend's family is a University of Tennessee fan, so I'll keep them happy and throw them in there.
Okay.
That's nice. You guys, this is probably not the interview you were expecting, Matt. I'm sure you were expecting us to talk a lot more baseball, but now you've piqued my interest. Manny Diaz, who coached down here at Miami, they paid a lot of money for Darian Mensah, huh? Is that the Tulane transfer?
That is, yeah. I'm not going to call myself a guru, but when the portal opened, I said, that's the guy I want. So I'm happy with how things have worked out. I know Manny's done a really good job in the portal and in recruiting. So, yeah, we're excited about the ACC and hopefully the playoff pretty soon.
This is amazing, Stephen. 2 interviews, Major League Baseball oriented. Daniel Moskos dives into Dabo, finally dipping his toes into the transfer portal. And now Matt is knee deep in the transfer portal. Do you wish you were in college today? What's your NIL package look like, Matt Mervis?
Probably $0. Just
no, don't say that.
Whatever the electrolyte brand of the year is, they'll give me some free packets and tell me to post an Instagram story. But I don't know what it looks like in college baseball, but I can tell you I wouldn't have gotten anything.
Maybe a nice Honda Accord, local Durham Honda dealer maybe up there.
I'll take it.
A 4-door.
I don't know if they're giving out cars, but I'll take one.
All right, for our this is my last one because there's always a good story behind when someone's doing an interview in a car. Okay, for our audio audience, obviously it's myself, Stephen, hello, Kyle, and Matt is doing this interview in his car. Okay, our visual audience will see this. Where are you, and what are you doing in your car?
Well, I'll start by saying that I missed the beginning of this interview, so I apologize. And I was about to leave the gym when Kyle texted me and said, hey, you're going to join. So I just, I had to come to the mall with my girlfriend to take care of some holiday returns. And so I just got here a little bit early and parked as far as possible to not have any distractions.
Do you have gift opening anxiety? Like when someone gives you a gift, you feel the need to, oh my God, this is exactly what I wanted, but like you really didn't?
Well, I had my 3rd Christmas this year. This is, I'm in year 3 of my relationship with my girlfriend, and I've been to her house 3 years now for Christmas. And because I'm so new to the holiday, it's her niece, the 2-year-old niece, gets the most presents, and I get the second most. So I always feel, as a 26-year-old, I feel guilty that my girlfriend's parents are spoiling me so much on Christmas. But yeah, I make sure to say my thank yous and express my gratitude.
Okay, so you're double dipping. You're dipping into Hanukkah and Christmas, aren't you, Matt?
Yeah. You know, Hanukkah's not as big for us as it used to be. Now that, again, I've experienced plenty of those, but Christmas is the new, feel like a kid again during Christmas.
Okay. All right. And now the returns that are taking place, are these returns going right back on your credit card? You're making out like a bandit, or do you say, honey, take the money, go buy whatever you want?
You know, one of them is going back on my credit card at Lululemon, where my girlfriend just so happens to want to do some shopping. So the money will be added back on and be taken off of my credit card within a matter of minutes.
Wow. All right, Matt, listen, you know, the more I think about this, it's at some point down the road, we'd like to get you back on, maybe chat a little baseball, but I've loved this interview.
Me too.
I would, yeah, you know, maybe we get you on after the spring portal season closes. We'll see where Manny Diaz and the boys are at in Durham. We'll put a bow on that. We'll get ready for week 1. We'll chat with you in August as your fantasy football draft takes place. We'll stack you up. In the meantime, man, enjoy the heck out of Miami. I know we're thrilled to watch you. Best of luck, and we can't wait to meet you up there in Jupiter, man.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. I really enjoyed it as well.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you. See ya.
All right, so that was Matt Mervis. Fun conversation there. We'll touch base on that interview in a moment. Hey, don't forget, this all kind of lines up with everything that we got going on. I know we've let everybody know about Marlins single game tickets. Just go to marlins.com/tickets. Best place there to get everything you need for the season. On top of that, FanFest is coming up, and at FanFest, you will have an opportunity, if you haven't done so already, if it is of interest to you, if you can do it, become a Marlins member. It's amazing. Go to marlins.com/members. You can learn all about it, but all of this stuff, Stephen, kind of just coincides with one another. Become a member. Get out there at FanFest. As a member, you have access to exclusive events, kind of meet and greets, town hall meetings that maybe just the general fan doesn't have access to. Again, so be a member. If you're not a member, make sure you get your tickets, and make sure you come out and join us at FanFest. So the Matt Mervis interview, that was great, man. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, so did I. And I think a couple of things, first thoughts. Insane that he was traded and he was on his way to Fort Lauderdale. I think that's, sometimes there's signs in the universe, whatever.
Is that called serendipity? Kind of, or am I missing? Is that serendipitous?
I don't know. I don't know the definition of that, to be completely honest with you, but it did feel a little like, you know, it's like, it's kind of cool. It's a little feel good, you know. The second thing, he reminds me a lot of, and we talked about his college teammate Griffin Conine, but it's kind of that kind of situation where he's really killed it in the minors. Had a tough year last year. Hurt his hand. You know, I'm glad we asked him that question. We're not going to pretend like we're experts on everything. I really didn't know how he hurt his hand and when he hurt his hand. But, you know, he's done everything that he needs to do in the minors to prove that he's at least a AAA player. Now it's about doing it in the big leagues and getting a legit shot. Now, Michael Busch came out of nowhere with the Chicago Cubs and really, I think, stole the show and pushed back his opportunity. But, you know, Griffin Conine came up here and I thought he made an impact. You know, I know that he had ups and downs like anyone would coming up for the first time, but there's something there, right? At least for Peter Bendix and his crew to say, okay, we're bringing him back next year. This is another case with Matt Mervis. He's got options, Kyle, but you know, 6'2", 225 pull hitter. He's got to cut down on the swing and miss. There's no question about that. But interesting platoon situation possibly brewing with Jonah Bride and Matt Mervis.
Yeah, I agree. There's obviously a lot of versatility on this team. And I think a part of that is like, where are they best at? You know, where can they play? But yeah, Jonah Bride, Matt Mervis, you know, what's the first base situation?
Davidson De Los Santos, what's his situation? Where's he starting? I think is the minors.
I think this move, especially acquiring Matt Mervis, gives you that option. And De Los Santos still has 3 options, but I think he gives you that flexibility to start him in AAA unless he just totally knocks your socks off in spring training. But I think this allows you to start that young man back in AAA, make sure looks just as good as it did last year. No lingering issues that they need to get sorted out or whatever. But yeah, with Mervis, Bride, I feel like I'm forgetting somebody, but I guess I'm not at first base.
At
but
first?
Yeah, I guess I'm not. No, I guess I'm not. But yeah,
you're thinking the rotation at third because Bride could play third.
Yeah, he could play third too. But yeah, whatever. But I think you make a good point about De Los Santos. Maybe this does mean he'll start in AAA again, unless he totally just woos you. Matt Mervis has one option remaining, so in theory, he could spend all season on the big league roster. They don't use an option. He could go into 2026 with an option. So you do have some flexibility, Stephen, as you mentioned with that. So we'll see where it goes. But again, this is an opportunity to. I wouldn't even necessarily consider this taking a flyer on somebody. This is a change of scenery. This is a really good stick. Hasn't stuck at the big league level. Just didn't work out in Chicago for a multitude of reasons, as you mentioned. But a real fresh start here to give a 26-year-old some room to run and really figure it out, which is, again, they're going to do this with a lot of guys. It's Stowers and Conine and really Jonah Bride, Matt Mervis. There's a lot of room for these guys to get a lot of at-bats to prove that they belong in the major leagues for the long haul. And by the way, did I lose it? Serendipitous, by the way, refers to, it is correct. Good luck in making unexpected and fortunate discoveries. Fluke, good fortune, good luck, a stroke of luck. So a little bit fluky that he was on his way to Fort Lauderdale and then gets the news. So
are you ready to love it or leave it, or?
I think I'm ready. Yeah, 2 great interviews, another good show, staring down the barrel of another 2-hour affair here. So we can start to wrap things up, man.
Not sure if we're going to go the distance, 2 hours, but 11. All right, here we go. Love it or leave it. Go up. You ready? All right. First of all, this was I was originally supposed to do this, and it's just so cool. We got to do it again. Usually we do love it or leave it. In this case, and this is a rare one, very rarely do you trump the original OG. But in this case, you do. Love it or live it.
Okay,
how about that? Little Miami Live.
You went back to it. You couldn't get enough of your little play on words.
I couldn't get enough of it.
Yeah,
so let me give some background just for people that can't see it. And excuse me, I'm going to cough real quick. The Marlins announced on Tuesday that Miami Live is being built at Lone Depot Park. It's going to be an entertainment and dining complex done in partnership with industry leader, the Cordish Companies. The West Plaza will become the place to gather before and after Marlins games for concerts and other community events, not just during the season. 365 days a year. It's scheduled to open in early 2026. Kyle, love it or live it?
Love it. Yes. Echo the same thing I said earlier. Amazing for fans. Come out to the ballpark early, even if it's multiple hours before games, man. Like, it's just it's going to be awesome. It's going to be so cool. They do some really cool concerts. I'm sure that kind of transitions out to that area. It's outdoor, indoor venues. So going to be amazing. I know there's some other things. I don't think it's all been announced yet. There's some other really cool things coming to the ballpark this year that kind of enhances the fan experience. Nothing like extravagant, I should say, but some real minor things that they're doing that I think will make a major impact. I'm sure they'll talk about that in the coming weeks. But yeah, I love it, man. I think it's awesome. By the way, 1 year to build that, super fast. It's not a 3-year plan, man. That thing's coming quick.
What could I see you wearing to something like this? If you weren't the broadcaster, what would you be wearing to something like this? You would have your
short
hat
shorts, no shirt. My Crocs.
A little Mike Yard lemonade for you?
Yeah. No. Pale ale. A Guinness.
All right. Love it or leave it. The Marlins will be hosting an exhibition game with the New York Yankees at Lone Depot Park on Tuesday, March 25th. Now, opening day is the 27th. Skeens versus Candy. Go get your tickets. Marlins.com/tickets. What an opening day. Well, that is, by the way. How about that? A little exhibition. Now, this isn't the only time we've seen this. The San Francisco Giants, they did it last year with the Oakland A's. On Monday and Tuesday, they played at Oracle Park in San Francisco. Then the regular season started on Thursday, where the Giants played the San Diego Padres. So this isn't the first or anything like that. But a good opportunity to see a pretty darn good team that was just in the World Series and some big names. Love it or leave it, Kyle. The Marlins host an exhibition game right before opening day.
Yes, I love it. It's actually becoming more abnormal that teams aren't playing exhibitions. Dodgers, Angels play the Freeway Series every year. They play one game at home, one game on the road before opening day. I think it's great because spring training usually ends on the Sunday. You open up on a Thursday. This gives them the opportunity to really get one more last crack at things. Those regulars, unless they're hurt, the regulars will play in that game. You don't want to have 3 full days off before you go face Paul Skeens. Yep. That's the truth. Doesn't matter who you're facing, but in particular in this instance. So the regulars will go get 3 at-bats, probably play 6 or 7 innings, which is going to mean you're, on the Yankees side, the Judges, Stanton's, almost said Soto's. Who else did they get? They've got Jazz. They just Goldschmidt. They got a bunch of guys. I mean, they're all going to play unless they're hurt. There's no reason for them not to play. It's very important to get those 3 at-bats 24, 48 hours before the regular season. So awesome for the fans, right? Awesome for the Marlins, so you don't have all that time off. Love it.
Didn't even think of that, the Jazz component of this. Yeah, I love it too. I think for especially a young team, think about this for the Marlins when they're done on Sunday, their final spring training game, they're going to be home for the next 2 weeks. You know, I know it sounds funny to think about it, and I know it doesn't technically count the exhibition game, but I think it's really good for guys and players. And you know what? I'm ticked off because I put it on loop. This music, by the way, and it did not listen. Put it on again. I put it on loop. It doesn't listen. But anyway, see, why did it stop now? Unbelievable.
I'm sorry.
What's going on, man? Loop, go. Jeez. Lost my train of thought. So the 2 weeks I think matters, and I think for a young team to see someone in the New York Yankees, I think that's always a bonus. Some people might roll their eyes at it. I don't. I think that it's cool. I think it matters. I think it can help a team. And like you said, Kyle, they're in for it on Thursday in Paul Skeens, and Pittsburgh's in for it too with Sandy on the other end. That is going to be box office. I cannot wait. I'm so excited. Grab your popcorn. I love it. Love it or leave it. Saying Happy New Year's on January 15th.
Yeah, this is the last day. I also just checked the Yankee schedule, by the way. They're actually going to play in Port St. Lucie Monday and come down to Lone Depot Park Tuesday before traveling home and opening up against the Brewers on the 27th. I don't know if that means that anybody will actually not play on the Tuesday, but regardless. Yes, this is the last day. So I'm going to love it for today. I will leave it tomorrow, which is actually tonight. If you're watching on Thursday and the show is live, I could really twist your brain with that one. But January 15th is the cutoff day. Even if you're seeing somebody for the first time in the new year, beginning on the 16th, the new year is gone, come and gone. We're in one now. We're in it. So yeah, I think 15th is the cutoff date for me. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I would say I think that to me, Happy New Year after like a couple of days, it's a nervous crutch. It's like for people that don't enjoy small talk, that's a big thing to be able to say. I think it's a wasted thing to say, like Happy New Year on January 4th. That tells me there's not much to talk about. That's me. If I just saw you, hey, Happy New Year, Kyle, whatever, it's January 4th, whatever, fine. That's fine. But at this point, if we're still doing Happy New Year, try to think of something else.
I mean, I think it's okay if you initiate the conversation with, hey, Happy New Year, you exchange the pleasantry, and then it's followed up with a how you doing. If you simply just exchange Happy New Year's, we could have just said hello.
Imagine just saying Happy New Year and walking away.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe I could just, yeah. So I love it for the 15th. I'll leave it starting on the 16th. If you do want to initiate a conversation with a Happy New Year on the 15th, make sure you simply follow it up with a how are you doing, even if you don't care how they're doing.
All right, last one before the music somehow stops again, even though it's on loop, and that really irks me. Major League Baseball has banned 2 fans who Dodgers outfielder Mookie Betts interfered with during a World Series game, of course, at Yankee Stadium, from attending any games at big league parks. Love it or leave it.
I don't know.
Is it too harsh? What do you think?
I don't know. I hadn't thought
Is
about
it
it.
fair?
For a lifetime ban? If you're going to ban them for a year from all big league stadiums, fine. If the punishment fits that crime, nobody was injured or killed. I mean, I think it's okay. If you're going to do a 1-year ban, I'm fine with that. If it's lifetime, I think that's excessive and like it's really okay. But so does that mean I'm loving it or leaving it?
That means you're leaving it because you don't agree with the lifetime ban.
So you're saying it is lifetime. Did you say lifetime?
It said during a World Series ban from attending any games at big league parks. I mean, it doesn't give a time frame, so I assume that they're banned.
Right. So lifetime, I leave it. If it's a year, I love it.
I would. First of all, it's unacceptable, and the punishment in itself is you lost the World Series.
What happened again? Did they reach into his glove? They yanked at his glove? Was that bad?
Yeah. Yep. So, do I think a lifetime ban is a little harsh? Probably. But fans that do that, I don't know. Like, they're capable of doing it again. I don't know. Are they going to do it again? I guess we don't know. But I think I think a lifetime ban is a little harsh. But I think a year is like learn your lesson because it's unacceptable. There it is. It is on loop. Good.
So maybe it was the whole time, and you were
I jumped the gun.
Trigger.
I didn't trust it.
Impatient.
Yeah. So I'm gonna leave this as well.
All
Agree with the ban, but not the length.
Sounds good, man. That's good. Yeah.
That's all I got for you.
All right. Another great show. We do know. I'm not going to totally tease it. We do know at least one of our guests next week. Not going to share. We're shooting for 2 guests. Not going to share either name. But
on a special week next week, by the way.
Your birthday week.
27.
Yes. We shall never forget. Okay, so one more show next week. And then one more show the following week. 2 more regular Hot Stove shows. 1 extravaganza, 5 to 7 during Fan Fest. And then we're off and running.
Hey, Siri. How many days until February 8th?
It's 24 days until then.
Wow. 24 days till Fan Fest.
That was tough math. So on that note, Stephen, as always, it is great to see you. Nicely done. I hope everybody has a great rest of their week, has a great weekend. For Stephen, I'm Kyle, and we'll see you next Thursday.